Welcome to the Sunday morning forums at First Unitarian Society in Milwaukee. I'm Lorraine Jacobs, and I'm doing the welcome today from our chairperson, Mark Miller. He is away, and I truly believe he's seeking snow. He's skiing. So anyway, we can hear all about it when he comes back. We're very thankful to have George Bledsoe with us. He's a forum group member too, and he's our Zoom and computer tech person. And I know that without George, our forums wouldn't be much. So technical wise, I'm saying, but thank you, George. Just to mention, next Sunday, the 19th, we have Mike Barrera. He's assistant archivist at the Milwaukee County Historical Society. He's going to talk about a new initiative to highlight Milwaukee sites. So we'll see about that. And today we welcome our presenter, and that's gone from my mind, Jennifer Evans, and she will be introduced today by Ted Craig. Thank you.
Okay, I'll make this brief. I just have a couple questions for the audience. So if you could raise your hand, how many in here believe that climate, right, the overheating of the planet, is an issue that's in some ways bigger and more significant than a lot of the important things that we work on for justice? Okay, so most of you, okay, okay, then I won't say anymore. You understand the consequences. Then second, how many feel you're familiar with the Milwaukee Climate and Equity Plan that has been passed in the city? Okay, good. Well, you'll learn a lot. Jennifer Evans is your person to tell you these things, and you'll learn a great deal. I'll just tell one little story. When this all got started to have a Milwaukee plan, I was part of a small group of people, Sierra Club 350.org and so on. And it was really almost impossible to get anything done at the state level. We had the gerrymandered legislature and a horrible governor, just by 2 cents, who wouldn't do anything on climate, would do the opposite. And so we knew we had to act locally to do anything. And so we started saying, well, how about we get Milwaukee to take significant action? That's going on all over the country. Many cities are making commitments to 100% renewable energy, zero emissions. And one of the first people we met with was Tony Zielinski, an alderman at the time, who was an ally, very sincerely into it. When we met with them, we said, well, you had a plan in 2013 called Refresh in Milwaukee, right? There'd been a comprehensive planning process to have this whole thing to make the city more sustainable. I said, oh yeah, I remember that. He says, well, do you know what happened with it? I mean, I'm not kidding you. This thing had passed. There'd been a plan to have annual updates every year. And for 6 years or whatever it was at that time, there were no annual updates, and not a single alder or person in the administration, other than, well, someone in administration could tell you, but basically nobody could tell you what happened with it. So they developed this good comprehensive plan, and it sat on a shelf. And that's pretty common. There's all kinds of blue ribbon commissions that come up with stuff, and it never makes it to legislation, and nothing happens with it. So that's why Jennifer Evans and the effort she's involved in is so important. We passed a comprehensive plan in Milwaukee to reduce climate emissions and to get a lot more racial equity in the process, create economic opportunity. And we needed a follow-on coalition, a group that would be monitoring that, making sure it's happening, in touch with the city and pushing this. And Jennifer Evans has been really, she is the reason this is happening. She and Linda Frank, they're on top of the details. They know what's going on. They put together a coalition with dozens of organizations that are involved, and she is the best person imaginable to give you an update. It's incredibly important. You know, we pass a plan, we make a commitment, we have to be on the ball and active and organized to make it happen. So I'll let Jennifer tell you all the details on that.
Well, some nights I wake up thinking, is this worthwhile? Thank you, Ted, for making me feel like, yeah, we're on the right track. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here today. I will be using my written notes since I don't want you to have to see them from your perspective. So as I was thinking about what would be helpful to talk about, I couldn't help but thinking about how pardon?
Talk into the microphone.
Talk into the microphone. I will try to do that.
And you get it close.
No, this is your microphone, right? Okay. Thank you. So anyway, as I was thinking about today's talk, I couldn't help but think about how deeply this topic resonates with our Unitarian Universalist principles. And as I learn more about the causes and effects of climate change, I'm continually reminded of the interdependent nature of our existence. Our economic, political, social, and environmental systems are constantly interacting with one another and impacting one another. And it's also increasingly apparent that efforts to address climate change really must be grounded in principles of justice, equity, and compassion. So I hope that you'll come away from this presentation with some ideas of how you can become a part of this effort. I was going to ask how many of you are familiar with Milwaukee's Climate Equity Plan, but Ted's already done that for me. I do ask that you hold your questions until the end. I'm easily distracted. So if you can hold them till the end, and then I'll do my best to answer your questions. And I'm so glad Ted's here. He can kind of fill in what I don't know, because I am not an expert. I'm just a regular citizen like the rest of you. So many of us, so this is what they always say, tell people what you're going to tell them and then tell them. So I want to just kind of give you for those of you who aren't familiar with this, kind of give you the context for what the work we're doing and who we are, and then give you a progress update and opportunities for engagement. So many of us are aware of the fact that of the pressing need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions 50% by 2030 and 100 or be net zero by 2050. And this is in order to avoid irreversible damage to the planet. Awareness of this kind of deadline that the scientists have set for us can either produce a sense of urgency, if not panic, for some of us. But, you know, for most people, this is just too abstract. It's just too vague and distant, and it's not, isn't something that we can relate to. However, remember this, many of us, in fact, 100,000 people in Milwaukee were without power the week of August that we had this series of storms that rolled through our city. So if we can connect the dots between these local, concrete, and personal events, it becomes more real to people, and they're more likely to take action. And one of my big things about, one of my pet peeves is when we talk about climate change, like it's this abstract thing, and just talk about reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But what we're really talking about is impact on people and our environment. This event also demonstrates how extreme weather events associated with climate change are a threat multiplier. That loss of power affected families who needed it to run their refrigerators, to run their air conditioners, and for some families to run life-saving medical equipment. In addition, the trees that were lost during that storm will make those neighborhoods hotter and more dangerous during the next extended heat wave. And we know the next extended heat wave is coming. Also, while the wildfires in California demonstrate that climate change is increasingly become an equal opportunity threat, it has the most devastating impact on low-income households and communities of color. This includes a large number of us. 1 in 4 Milwaukee residents live in poverty, according to the city. And while low-income households are more heavily impacted by climate change, they have fewer resources to deal with the destruction that it causes. In response to these issues, in 2019, as Ted pointed out, the Milwaukee Common Council established a task force, which was charged with developing a plan to address both climate and equity. This began with a joint city-county effort. During the planning process, however, the county kind of took a back seat, and the city moved ahead on its own. I will talk later about efforts to re-engage with the county. This was a 5-year planning process. The task force recruited more than 80 members of the community to work on 9 different work groups representing all the various sectors of the economy. These work groups conducted research and developed initial recommendations. And they did seek public input through multiple surveys conducted in person and online. So Our Future Milwaukee is an outgrowth of this process. We only formally launched in April. We actually had a transition period in 2023 when we reached out into the community to develop membership. Fortunately, thanks to a survey of emissions conducted in 2018, we have a pretty good idea of where the greatest sources of emissions are coming from, and this gives us a good idea of where to focus our efforts. As you can see, buildings and transportation account for a large portion of greenhouse gas emissions. They do plan to do another greenhouse gas emissions survey in the next couple of years, and that'll give us an even better idea of where we stand. So the recommendations in the climate equity plan are organized around 10 big ideas that identify actions we can take to reduce emissions. They all include an equity component, requiring that we either create or expand family supporting green jobs. I don't think I'm going to go through all of these. When we get into the question and answer, if there's questions about specific parts of it, feel free to ask questions. But I will highlight the fact that the Green Jobs Accelerator, which will expand the green workforce, is really kind of the keystone of the plan, as labor will be needed to implement most of these ideas. Also, when you are leaving, I have a booklet here with our little pamphlet with all the ideas listed in a short description. One of the most important things that I would like to help you understand today is that Milwaukee's climate equity plan will in many cases address some of our most pressing community needs. This is especially important to keep in mind when talking to elected officials. Milwaukee's climate equity plan takes a both-and approach. We can address climate change, economic inequity, and social needs at the same time. For example, weatherizing homes and increasing the tree canopy reduces the impact of heat waves, lowers energy costs for homeowners, provides family supporting jobs while reducing emissions. So this is, it's not like we either address climate or we take care of these problems. We're doing both at the same time. And you'll see more examples of this as I talk about some of the work that's being done. So a brief commercial for Our Future Milwaukee. We are a non-governmental, all-volunteer nonprofit organization. Our mission is to ensure that Milwaukee's climate equity plan is fully and equitably implemented. And we're accomplishing this by monitoring government action, informing the public, and mobilizing for collective action. We're also working with our partners to support efforts to adopt and implement all or parts of the Milwaukee's plan throughout Milwaukee County. We have 21 member organizations right at this point in time. And we're continuing our outreach efforts to ensure that we have greater representation by youth and diverse communities. We have established 3 working groups in addition to our leadership and communications team. And our monitoring process is really kind of a 3-pronged effort. We are actively advocating for regular reporting and accountability processes and structures by the city. We have also taken a deep dive into the platforms and reporting systems being used and are making recommendations on how to improve them. And finally, we are keeping informed about progress through formal and informal sources. So for example, Linda, my partner in crime, Ted mentioned, and I are both meeting with the Environmental Collaboration Office every month to getting updates, in addition to making use of other resources. We also have a monthly newsletter, and right now we have 825 plus subscribers with a 45% open rate. That's a pretty good because the industry standard is between 15 and 20%. And we work in person, tabling events, offering webinars, and doing presentations, which enabled us just since April to reach an additional almost 500 people. In fact, Ted was one of the presenters at a recent event with Interfaith Conference in which they showed the film Cooked. Just a FYI, one of the major things that we've been doing is getting the word out about the Inflation Reduction Act and how households can benefit. Many people are not aware of the substantial federal and local benefits available to them to help defray or actually eliminate the cost of making their homes more energy efficient and livable. So with the support of our organizational partners, we are getting the word out. Citizen in Action is doing a wonderful job in this area in particular. I'm really glad to see that Robert's here today in the audience. So our first big win, mobilizing is the third leg of our three-legged approach. Our first big win was to actually get the plan adopted. 65 people showed up to testify for 2.5 hours, and 30 organizations signed our letters of support. We also talked to alders, and we were really glad we did because there were a couple of them that thought this was just a little project, a little side project that one of the other alders had. And we're like, no, 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 we've been working on this for years. This is a big community thing. You've got to support it. And we were really glad that we talked to those folks because we had an almost unanimous adoption of the plan by the Common Council. More recently, we've been working with our partners to meet with government leaders, writing letters of support, and mobilizing citizens to testify at budget hearings. And as a result, we were able to, and I know that Robert Craig played a major role in this. We were really pleased that Alderwoman Dmitrievich approved $400,000 for the Environmental Collaboration Office to hire staff to look for funding for the program. They were able to raise $44 million. So that's pretty impressive, pretty good investment in your dollars. More recently, we've been working with the county and we're able to get $100,000 in funding, including the Milwaukee County's 2025 budget for the county to hire a new staff person who will pursue federal funding. In addition, we are collaborating with county supervisors and the new sustainability director to adopt Milwaukee's climate and equity plan. So I've been talking about money. Money is really a major determinant of the success of Milwaukee's climate and equity plan. And fortunately, the Biden administration has made historic investments in addressing climate change and rebuilding our infrastructure over the next decade. These funds have been passed along to states through several channels. If you look just at the Inflation Reduction Act, for example, you'll see that money is going directly to households, to corporations, but also to state governments, and then is trickling down to cities and other municipalities. So this is probably the most important slide that I'll be showing you today. This is based on preliminary information that I have from the Environmental Collaboration Office. It was based on a report I received from them in September. And the key takeaway I would like you to have from this is that all 10 of the big ideas have been received federal funding. So funding has been secured for every one of the plans. Even the very tiny, it was too tiny for me to put the title in, but way at the top, there's that teeny weeny wedge that you can barely see. That's for food waste reduction. That received $400,000. So we're talking big bucks here to get the work done. And as I mentioned, the Environmental Collaboration Office raised 44 million of this. The 210 million represents efforts across the city with a lot of different departments applying for funds. If you add in that 149 million statewide rebates, obviously we're not going to get the whole 149 because that's for the whole state. But if you add in what Milwaukee will probably benefit from, the amount that's going into green and healthy homes will increase substantially. So the second takeaway is that these the allocations seem to roughly align with the major areas of that we need to be covering in terms of transportation and buildings in terms of making sure those projects are funded. So one of the things that was a bit of a challenge in putting this presentation together, as I was thinking about, is we're really in the beginning, the early stages of implementation. And even for reporting, we're still trying to figure out how do we get the city to report? What do they report? What are the metrics they should be using? So we're early in the process. And you should be aware when I say that the city has received funding, it's not like when you go to the bank and you cash a check. It's more like you apply for the funds, you get and if you're lucky, you go through several, stages of applications, you apply for the funds, you get the award, but then you may have to jump through some more hoops. For example, you may need to do environmental study. You may need to do a feasibility study. It may be a multi-year grant where the first year grant is for planning. As a former fundraiser, I'm familiar with that process, but a lot of people don't realize how complicated it can be. So for example, the Environmental Collaboration Office successfully applied for and received a wonderful $14 million forestry grant, which they want to use to enhance green spaces and increase our tree canopy. They were awarded that last August. They still haven't gotten the money yet. So there's this lag. So don't think, okay, why aren't I seeing more work being done? It's a complicated process. And that's just part of some of the challenges that we're facing. There's also I'll be talking about the Trump wildcard and the fact that reporting structures are a challenge. So keep that in mind as we talk about this. In regard to the reporting issue, there's some confusing directives in the plan itself and by the city about who's responsible for reporting, and we're still trying to figure that out. We're putting pressure on the city to get more clarity around who's responsible for reporting, what those reports should include, what's going to be done with the information. So the good news is we've been successful in getting the alderwoman, Dmitrievich, to call for the first advisory board meeting, which will be coming up later this month. So we've also submitted suggestions for what we like to see on the agenda. So we're hoping that will move things forward. I'm glad to report that Environmental Collaboration Office, also known as ECO, has not waited for that process to take place. They purchased a plan from Climate View, which is providing a platform for reporting to the city. You and I can go online at the website that I have listed up there. Basically, if you just go on the city website, you'll find it. If you put in Climate View or Climate Equity Plan. And you can click on specific projects to read a description and any updates that have been provided. We've taken a deep dive into Climate View and found some issues, some concerns we have about lack of clarity. I personally don't like the fact that you have to keep clicking down in multiple clicks to get to information. I want a one-page dashboard. I could say, okay, we're this far, we've got this % done, this is the project that's going. So we did a deep dive into Climate View and made recommendations for either improving, replacing, or supplementing this platform with easy to understand dashboards. We're delighted that Eric Schomburger has been gracious and open to our suggestions, and his staff are making updates to the platform this month. So I can't tell you what it's finally going to look like, but we can already see some improvements. We also are looking at possibly recommending purchasing a different platform. There's others being used by other cities that we think work better, but that's all in negotiation. We're also making use of other resources to look at what's happening in the city. This particular map is called an equity map, and it's pretty cool. You can look in on here and filter the report to find out which communities in Milwaukee are most at risk from climate change and other issues.
There's that map, Jen.
This is on the City of Milwaukee website. If you put in equity map, it'll pop up. I can also share after the presentation links by email. This map is from the Department of Public Works, and I'm really excited to see that they have 62 different projects already underway that they're working on to improve our streets. The Department of Public Works has secured significant funding to redesign key streets in Milwaukee, including 36 million for 6th Street, 14 million for a reimagined Willard Avenue, and 25 million to upgrade Center Street. You probably have seen some of this work going on as you drive around the city. They're putting in protected bike lanes, making it safer to walk, slowing traffic down. This is really important. It's part of what is known as complete streets, which is one of the features included in the climate equity plan. And the idea is to revamp our streets to make them safer and more accessible for bikers and pedestrians by reducing the use of cars, reliance on cars, and making cars slow down and not speed. We're reducing greenhouse gases and making our cities safer for everyone. And not to mention making transportation more equitable. I just thought you might like to know that Mayor Cavalier Johnson recently signed a city document which formally accepted nearly 15 million in federal money to pay for an electric vehicle charging system. This is their current map of anticipated locations, but they are accepting input if you have ideas about where charging stations should be located. At least 40% of the chargers will be in disadvantaged communities, and you'll notice that these are all level 2 charging stations, so they take about a half an hour to work. They should be in locations that are open to the public, and there should be about 4 charging spots per site. Some exciting things are happening with solar. The city has approved 2 new solar arrays for 10 megawatts of power. These projects will allow the city to achieve its 25% by 2025 renewable energy for city operations. Plans include an upgrade of the current solar farm near the airport and building a new solar array on 5 Mile Road in Caledonia. That's enough renewable energy to fully power over 80 city buildings, including all of our police and fire stations, libraries, and port buildings. This is a substantial increase over the current array we have, which is for only 2.25 megawatts of power. So the environmental collaboration has also been awarded money from the Environmental Justice Grant to fund homeowner education. And you'll see on the chart table here that they are offering free home energy assessments for up to 300 homeowners who live in disadvantaged or income qualified neighborhoods. So if you look at if you use the link in there, you can check and see if your neighborhood would qualify. These are really important. You might think, well, big deal. I get, my home energy audit. But it is a big deal because as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, the Homes Act will pay for weatherization of your home if it meets a certain criteria for the amount of energy you're going to save. And you don't know how much energy you saved or will save until you have the audit done first. So it's requiring a home energy assessment first. before you have any of the work done. So you can show how much of your energy you are actually saving. And then again, those, I can't stress enough how generous the benefits are for the Inflation Reduction Act, and really suggest you all look into it. Another exciting thing that's going on is taking some work and is proving to be more difficult than anticipated, but working on net zero energy homes. So living in a home that basically does not use very much energy is a luxury, really, for the most part, for people who can afford solar panels and state-of-the-art HVAC. But lower income families would really benefit from more than anyone from the energy savings. So Milwaukee's trying to address this disconnect by building net zero homes for low income buyers in partnership with Habitat for Humanity. So in September, the U.S. Department of Energy announced a $3.4 million grant that will go toward Milwaukee's construction of 35 homes on vacant lots in disadvantaged neighborhoods, and the opening of a factory to make wall panels for net zero manufactured homes. This is a cool system in which you can actually build the major components in a factory and then ship them over to the location where the building is going to go up. But you want the factory to be close to where you're doing construction so that you don't have transportation costs that outweigh the benefits. So this has been a bit of a sticky point for them, and they're working on that. But they have established a new and local partnership with UWM and Rocky Mountain Institute. They hope to have set up this new factory in Milwaukee. ECO is also partnering with Clean Wisconsin and the Sherman Park Neighborhood Association to hire 3 resilience ambassadors who will educate residents about climate change and connect them with the knowledge, tools, and resources they need that as residents need to adapt to the impact of climate change. There's also been some setbacks, as is always the case when you're trying to make progress on something. But this only highlights the importance of citizen input around government funding priorities. Notably, the new Connect 2 bus rapid transit line, also known as BRT, which was supposed to go into the 27th Street corridor, was announced with great fanfare. In fact, we put it in our newsletter. We were so excited. And then the city canceled it. The county canceled it. Thank you. I'm glad Ted's here to correct me. It would have expanded service and connected the Connect 1 line, the first route in the Connect. What's happened to my slide? That was not supposed to happen. Okay, anyway, I'll just move on to the next slide. Great. So that has been canceled. Where was I? So in addition, the county announced that it's also going to replace old buses with diesel instead of electric vehicles, which is what we had counted on them doing with the electric vehicles. One of the cases they've made is the fact that the vehicles that they did try didn't work very well, that they had problems, but we know that they purchased them from a company that has now gone out of business because they don't sell a good product. Who knows what, but it's very important that we put pressure on the county and the city to start going more toward electric vehicles. There's also the wild card in the game. What's going to happen with the Trump administration, which has announced plans to claw back funds from the Inflation Reduction Act and close several government agencies? Preliminary information that we've collected from our partners indicates that funds already awarded to Wisconsin will probably be safe for the next 2 years. It's highly unlikely that they would be able to take away money that's already been awarded. However, unawarded grants and multi-year planning grants are most at risk, which is why many entities, including our city, are frantically working to get these funds awarded before Trump gets into office. This article from Energy News Network seems to sum up the current perspective and highlights the importance of local and state action in the face of federal pullbacks. So what I'm hearing is people are saying, we think we can continue to make progress. It's just going to be much more difficult. We're going to need to be able to move with a constantly shifting environment, and there may be losses. I know that we've already lost one of our partners because they've lost some funding from the federal government already, and they're going to have to restaff and re-strategize. So there's a major countervailing fact to the Trump factor. A majority of people across the nation, and even here in Wisconsin, accept the fact that climate change is taking place and likely to affect them and future generations. The real gap is not between what people think or feel. The gap is between what people feel they can do about it. So 70% of people in Wisconsin, average, accept the fact of climate change. 64% are worried about it, but only 43% feel like there's something they can do about it. We need to fix that. We need to let people know that there are things we can do. In fact, I had a conversation recently with a former elected official, and I was talking to him about what we were doing. He says, "Oh, it's too late. We're doomed. We've messed up the planet. There's nothing we can do." I'm like, "Wait a minute. Yes, there is. We're doing this, and we're doing this, and we're doing this." It's like, "Oh, never mind. Sign me up." So that's what we need to keep in mind. So now what we need is not trying to convince people that climate change is real. And frankly, I don't care if they believe in climate change. If they're willing to support, clean energy or whatever, who cares what they believe? Let's get on with making it happen. So you and we can sign up, we can speak up, we can show up. So first of all, sign up for a newsletter if you're not already on it, or if you don't want to sign up for our newsletter, sign up for, the Sierra Club or somebody else that you think is doing good work. Speak up. Talk to your friends and family about climate change. It shouldn't be like a dirty secret. Catherine Hayhoe has done some wonderful work talking about the importance of how that we don't talk about climate change enough. It's like, sex used to be, you don't talk about it, right? But she talks about how we have to normalize this and make it, people feel comfortable talking about it. And the third point, showing up. Show up to budget hearings and local government, events, outreach events. I can tell you that I went to a budget hearing a couple of years ago, and 30 people showed up for some project. I don't even remember what it was now. It was about, I think it was some homeowners benefit that they didn't want to lose. And there were 3 of us there for climate. 33. That's not good. And in fact, I talked to Alderwoman Dmitrievich and several other elders, and they said, nobody talks to us about climate. They don't seem to think that it's that important. We don't get the word that it's that important. Our elected officials need to know that this is important to us, and we will take action. Keep in mind, elected officials are constantly under pressure to react to their changing environment and what people in their communities see as crises or pressing concerns. And we need to make it clear that, again, addressing climate change will also help to address these other social problems. So my parting words to you are, sign up for our newsletter. We give action alerts. We tell you about benefits available and progress reports. And we are setting up some new work groups. We're going to set up some sector-based work groups. We're going to set up one for jobs, one for transportation, and one for buildings. And we are looking for volunteers to help us do the research to make sure we know what's going on. Right now, we don't know what we don't know. So we need to be clear and make sure we do the research and know what's happening in each sector and that things are actually happening. I give in the Environmental Collaboration Office and the mayor credit for moving ahead on this, but you know, their job is not there to, they're there to rally support. They're not going to tell us what they're not doing, what's not happening. We need to do that. That's our job to say, okay, is this happening? What can we do about it? Where do we need to put some gentle pressure? And we have seen that showing up and talking and speaking up really matters. Remember that $400,000 that we got by talking to the alderwoman resulted in $44 million for climate change in Milwaukee. Speaking up really does work. And that was just a handful of people that were doing that. So this is our contact information. We are going to work on a website this year. If somebody wants to help me set up a website, delighted to have your help. And I thank you for coming, and I hope that you join us in this effort. Thank you very much.
Question.
Yeah, let me just take the,
Questions and answers?
yeah, I just want to say our Earth Justice Ministry here is the organization that's really working with Our Future Milwaukee. We've got a work group headed by Ted to help with this, and we have a representative to Our Future Milwaukee. We're meeting today after the service at 12:30 if you want to make it and come, and that's one way that you can connect along with directly joining with Our Future Milwaukee like Jennifer talks about.
Thank you for reminding me. I completely forgot. Hannah Fox is our representative. We have quarterly meetings plus the work groups. And so, yes, First Church is.
Did you get to
part of
say your
this.
name? Or was that if somebody wants you could, you know, kind of put a shout
Yeah.
out for who you are.
Okay, I'm Bruce Wiggins. I'm one of the co-chairs of EJM.
Thanks, Bruce. So, any questions?
If Trump manages to prevent more money or take the money away, then what happens?
We strategize and figure out a new plan and do a workaround.
You know, can I just chime in on that one?
Sure.
You know, nothing sticks, right? But I think a lot of people are thinking if the federal government becomes lousy on climate, they claw back the money and do some other terrible things. We are a federalist form of government in this country, and the state is, I think, where the money could be. And we have things going for us. We had a gerrymandered legislature for years. Now it's not. We can win that legislature. We have a governor who says that he's committed to these things. So there are other avenues to go to get resources, right? And we just need to always be thinking strategically about where to move.
In some ways, we're better situated too, because now we know what to expect. We know that when he says he's going to do something stupid, he really is going to do something stupid. So we can, plan ahead. But again, it would be for the money that's already been awarded, it would be difficult to take that back. One of the major benefits from the Inflation Reduction Act are tax credits, and that would require an act of Congress to change that. So there are some protections. And, during the first Trump administration, the state and local cities and municipalities stepped up to the plate and said, okay, if you're not going to lead, we are. So guess what we'll do? We're not going to give up. Other questions? Well, I guess I'm off the hook then. Thank you so much. I appreciate your attention.